Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quantum Spirituality on Dream Vision 7 RadioNetwork.com, the show where past spiritual wisdom and present-day science merge to show us our future. Your host is Peter Canova, author of the 25-time award-winning book series, The First Souls Trilogy, available on Amazon, and Peter's website, petercanova.com. That's PeterCanova.com. This show is a live video, so if you're only listening and want to watch, go to Peter's website, petercanova.com. PeterCanova.com, where you can access his Facebook page to leave comments or questions, and click the D7RN link where you can receive a free gift video.
Hello, friends, followers, and listeners. I'm your host from Quantum Spirituality, Peter Canova. This is the show where the past and the present merge to unlock the mysteries of our future. I just want to remind our new listeners that you may want to go back and listen to the first 3 shows, because this show builds one episode on the other. It's kind of instructional in a way. And in the first 3 episodes in particular, we provide a framework to understand some of the issues that we speak of on quantum physics and on spirituality in the later episodes. So we have a great show lined up for you today. And without any further delay, please listen to it and enjoy. And join us every Tuesday, first Tuesday of every month, for Quantum Spirituality. The body of work that I do is largely about the forces that shape human experience. If we think of these forces in a typical way, we get very hung up. Differing beliefs about gods and goddesses, monotheism and polytheism, the spiritual and the psychological, the material and the paranormal will always color our thoughts with ingrained preconceptions. But whether you're a believer or a materialist, a spiritualist or a psychologist, no one can deny that there's a pattern of forces that affects our lives. Now, our world is full of challenges. Life is a story of our desires and the opposition to those desires. Opposition may come from other people or from circumstances and events, but I've never met a person who did not face obstacles, adversity, and suffering in his or her life. In fact, as humans, we're defined by the degree to which we overcome these challenges. At the end of the day, life is really a personal school or boot camp we attend for growth. Our human journey is the stuff of art, the core of religion, and the object of scientific inquiry. But why isn't Earth the easy paradise symbolized by the biblical Eden? Why is the material world different from the heavens so many of our religions envision, a beautiful place where earthly cares are shed? Christianity says original sin is the reason for our misery. But another tradition existed that directly addresses all these questions above. As I pursued the spiritual matters through my life, it became apparent to me that certain threads interconnected the course of human spiritual history. From India and Asia, through Persia, and on into the Middle East and Europe, echoes of a universal wisdom appear in multifold traditions, from Hinduism to Buddhism, Manichaeism, Greek philosophy, and the Mediterranean mystery schools of the ancient world. Ultimately, it filtered down to the 3 Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, like the Bible, this tradition, directly or indirectly, and to a greater or lesser degree, speaks of a fall. This fall is really a change from a higher to a lower state of awareness. But unlike the fall depicted in Orthodox Judeo-Christian traditions, the fallen, according to this ancient wisdom, are never really separated or different from that from which they have fallen away. Neither was the concept of sin attached to this event. The fall, though possibly a mistake, was ultimately intentional because the source and the fallen were one. The source, call it God, the one, or the supreme consciousness, permeates everything. Therefore, the fall was an act of conscious self-limitation, the universal consciousness limiting itself into the appearance of many limited points of view, or many human lives. This limitation to gain personal experience had consequences. Limitation means ignorance of the whole, and ignorance is a form of shadow. So shadow and error were inherent in human experience from the beginning. This is why offshoots of this tradition often describe our world as an illusion. Illusion means that human consciousness is separated from the reality of its oneness, not in fact, but by misperception. Central to the collective story of this universal tradition is the recognition that the universe, both seen and unseen, was shaped by intelligent forces. In physics, we have gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces. These unseen forces shape our physical world. But according to the ancient wisdom, even these energies were controlled by higher forces that affected the human soul, which is also called the psyche. Natural law has a mathematical precision, but the psychic world of the mind and the soul was chaotic. It appeared to be subject to random chance and full of suffering. The order of natural law stood in stark contrast to the chaos of the human mind and soul. It was good and evil dwelling side by side within our being. How is this duality possible when both the scientist and the religious believer instinctively sense a unity behind all things? The scientist searches for the holy grail of a grand unified field theory to unite all the natural forces. The religious person seeks God, and if God is everything, how can a loving God be the source of all the evil in the world? What kind of God toys with us by tempting us into evil with a gift of free will? The Gnostic or Western branch of this ancient wisdom answers this question by telling us that God did not create the world. Not exactly. There is one God, but God operated through intermediary energies or intelligences in the creation. Most religions echo this belief in some form, even the most zealous about their monotheistic beliefs. Christianity has the Christ and the Holy Spirit, as well as the angels and devils, and they share in common with their Judaic and Islamic cousins such beliefs. Because Islam has jinns, Hinduism and Buddhism have their numerous gods and goddesses, each one differing in the intrinsic blend they have of light and shadow. In keeping with the notion of intermediary forces, Gnostics believe that the creator of the material world was not the one true God, but an inferior force generated by the source, but too far removed from the source for it to create perfection. So think of how videos or CD degrade in clarity with each successive copy, and you have the general idea behind this notion. So we have the genesis of all the rampant flaws and evil evident on the material plane of existence. The goal of the Gnostics was to attain the spiritual knowledge necessary to overcome these limiting forces that intervene between humanity and the true God at the root of all things. Now, does this sound far-fetched? Well, much needless conflict has occurred over the nature of God, because even the so-called monotheistic religions believe in these intermediary creative forces. At their roots, even the so-called polytheistic religions believe that one supreme being manifested all these various intermediary forces. These religions may use differing names for the intermediary forces, but like the universal spiritual tradition I'm speaking of, they too hold that unseen intelligences play a great role in human life. Also, most religions recognize that the various non-material powers are not entirely beneficial to human development. So we have the concepts of devils, jinns, and evil spirits. In other words, forces that retard our progress, retard our growth. Gnostics and their myths account for the fact that the further the manifested forces were from the source, the more shadow they contained. Their distinction between the immediate creator God and the hidden true God is a clear explanation for the dichotomy between the flawed material world and the perfection we are always told that God truly represents, because they felt that the creator God was in reality representative of these intermediary or lower forces of creation. Now, Gnosticism was one of the many ways the ancients interpreted the Christian experience, but it was not the interpretation accepted by the majority of bishops. History, like heresy, is defined by the victorious, and Gnosticism was labeled heresy. The several themes in my work are a combination of certain Gnostic traditions, my own meditations, and other mystical sources. So I do not purport to have the truth. Now, that would be pretty presumptuous. But I do think that there are compelling possibilities present for consideration that may help you gain a new perspective on your own spiritual growth. Now, Gnosticism itself was not monolithic. There were a variety of beliefs. For those interested, the works of Dr. Elaine Pagels presents some of the most accessible scholarly writings on the topic. But despite the differences of the Gnostic sects and the fact that they culturally or religiously identified with differing religious traditions, Gnostics were distinguished by several core beliefs. The most central conviction was that spirit, via the human soul, is trapped in a material dimension into which it keeps incarnating until awakened by the acquisition of esoteric knowledge gained from the guarded teachings of divinely inspired beings like Jesus of Nazareth. This knowledge had to be verified in practice by study, meditation, and contemplation until each person attains a subjective experience, or call it a psychic awakening, if you will, that allowed them to overcome the intervening forces of opposition, the retarding forces that work against our growth. It showed them that there is a oneness connected behind all things. And that Buddhist-sounding orientation is how many early Christians thought over 2,000 years ago, before the Roman Empire got a hold of Christianity. So an undercurrent of the Gnostic tradition was called dispensationalism. Now, this concept recognizes that every revealed instance of enlightenment is eventually overtaken by ignorance. So God dispenses revelations in waves through different prophets when most needed to keep reminding humanity of their true spiritual nature. So we see in the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata, the Hindu deity Krishna says, when righteousness declines, when wickedness is strong, I incarnate from age to age and take visible shape and move among men, supporting the good, thrusting back evil, and sitting virtue on her seat again, which is another way of saying that he lifts the veil of ignorance, which is thrusting back evil. The Gnostics, who are among the very first to embrace Christianity, understood Jesus's teachings as part of that continuity of revelation, perhaps the highest and clearest revelation of the ancient tradition. But certainly the earliest sayings of Jesus, particularly in the Gnostically oriented Gospel of Thomas, support this contention. Even the canonical Gospels, when read carefully, demonstrate the affinity of Jesus's teachings with the ancient Gnostic tradition. So how can these obscure revelations from the past help us today? How can one practically apply these teachings in his or her life? A perception is a word that means taking observations and relating them to our past experiences. So in effect, we process our beliefs according to the weight of past sensory and emotional experience, and that's how we see the world. An even less efficient filter of reality is adopting the perceptions, ideas, and dogmas of others and taking these beliefs on faith. So the Gnostics would say, hold on, don't take anything on faith until you have tested its truth by your own experience. And by the way, they didn't mean ordinary sensory and emotional experience. They meant experience gathered from deep meditative states, where the senses and emotions take a back seat to transcendental perceptions, states similar to those experienced by the prophets when they had their revelations. Yes, you can reach such states to greater or lesser degrees if it's important enough to you. If you seek with your heart and your mind, you will eventually have a transformative experience. The problem is that most people have too many distractions and too little desire. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio and TV Network and Quantum Spirituality with Peter Canova. I am your host, author of the 25-time award-winning First Souls Trilogy, which is available on my website, petercanova.com. That's petercanova.com. Please visit when you have a chance, and we'll be back shortly. Those of you who have been to my website, petercanova.com, have probably seen the blurb on the Quantum Spirituality book. I'm very pleased to announce that we now have a publication date. The book has been picked up by a Simon & Schuster imprint, and it's due to be published in the spring of next year. So if you watch this podcast or you keep checking out my website, I'll make announcements about any updates on that timetable. And I think you're going to find this book extremely interesting because it represents 35 years worth of research into the fields of ancient spirituality and quantum physics. And the book shows how they're essentially saying the same thing, though 2,000 and 3,000 years apart, about the creation, the origin of humanity, and the whole operation of reality. So there's some pretty fascinating subjects that are broken down to be easily readable. The 35 years worth of research also was the basis for the thematic underpinning of the 25-time award-winning First Souls Trilogy, which I'm sure a number of the viewers have read. So you'll probably find Quantum Spirituality doubly interesting after having read the trilogy. But in order to give you some idea of what the book is like, I'm going to read you an excerpt of the first chapter.
How did life start on Earth, and why is there so much suffering? Are we living in a simulated reality like the characters in the Matrix movie? Do parallel dimensions exist alongside ours, influencing our experience? What are the mysterious dark energies that penetrate our universe? Peter Canova folds space and time to bring the twin bookends of ancient wisdom and quantum science into a single focal point, answering these and many other deep mysteries of the creation. Quantum Spirituality can be heard every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. See the show where past and present merge to show us our future.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe Canavis, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Omega Institute, offering workshops, retreats, and online learning dedicated to awakening the best in the human spirit. For over 40 years, Omega has seen more than 1 million people come through its doors to grow, learn, and find a greater sense of purpose. With over 350 workshops to choose from, Omega offers something for everyone. Located in Rhinebeck, New York, just 90 miles north of New York City, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org or call 877-944-2002. Again, 877-944-2002.
In a world facing annihilation, a miraculous African nun rises to become the first female pope through a web of war, murder, and betrayal. Loved by some, hated by many, she becomes the deadly target of Islamic terrorists and her own cardinals as she introduces a new vision that will either save humanity or accelerate its destruction. 4 people must race against a nuclear holocaust to learn her astonishing secret. Pope Annalisa is available at petercanova.com, Amazon, and other online booksellers and bookstores worldwide.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back to Quantum Spirituality on Dream Vision 7 Radio and TV Network. I'm your host, Peter Canova, and you can find out more about me on my website, petercanova.com. That's petercanova.com, where you can learn more about some of the works that I've done. And one of my most popular books, Pope Annalisa, I'm happy to say, is now out on audio format. It's available on audio, or Audible, I should say, put out by ACX, which I believe is affiliated with Amazon. So please check that out when you have a chance. Also, if you have any questions or comments for me, you can leave them on my Facebook page, which is Peter Canova Author, or you can access that same page through my website. The Orthodox version of Christianity that prevails unto this day represented a substantive break in the continuity of the ancient spiritual tradition that permeated the old world. The adherents of the old spirituality in their many forms and permutations were eventually put down by the church as pagans or heretics. The inherent female characteristics of the old spirituality were also casualties of this orthodox domination. These tragic losses underpin much of the thematic work that I do and embodied in my various books. But it's indicative that in this age of self-advocacy, the thing that we least self-advocate for is our spiritual life. Most Western societies seem caught between the smug, cynical smog of secular materialism and an equally dulling reliance on old religious dogmas. Neither of these paths provide direct experience or real internalization of extraordinary truths. Now, one of the things that we need to talk about is spiritual responsibility. So, original sin that was supposedly incurred by Adam and Eve and passed on to us like a cursed inheritance. Each of us really creates and perpetuates our own sin, because the actual meaning, the root meaning of the word sin is error. And that error is simply ignorance. It's a forgetting or a disbelief in the original higher state from which our human souls descended. If we weren't so fixated on this world of imperfection, we would open our eyes to that state of bliss known as heaven. That is our error. We chose to be here in this state of misperception, and we must choose to work our way out by developing more accurate perceptions, in effect by seeing through new spiritual eyes. We all have the divine potential within us, since we are all projections of a divine unity. We're all capable of changing, of healing, of helping others, and all these things are miracles. Spiritual presence is like a 24/7 radio frequency, but to find it, you have to spend time tuning the dial, and most of us just don't make that time. We're busy with work, family, and the pressures of everyday life. But unless we dedicate a portion of each day to study, prayer, meditation, and contemplation, or learning, like hopefully you're doing with this podcast, we'll keep stumbling along in darkness. Spiritual responsibility requires effort, but the rewards are great. At some point in our meditative practice, we build up a critical mass of spiritual energy. Guidance then comes in the form of information gained in dreams, feelings, hunches, and synchronous experiences. New directions become apparent, and miracles start to happen. And what are miracles? Well, Hollywood-type miracles do happen, but miracles are really changes of seemingly locked-in patterns. Now, alcoholics or dope addicts might kick their habit. The depressed start to cope without drugs. A long-term illness goes into remission. War and conflict take a detour towards peace. All these events are miracles where habitual patterns that are negative and seem apparent give way to new patterns that are positive, despite seeming unlikely. It's unfortunate that books that we read and they talk about spirituality are often viewed as attacks on the old religious beliefs by the church and by people who identify as fundamentalists. Even this podcast, I think probably maybe some people are scared of it or find it offensive because it's not talking the usual Christian party line. Well, I can only tell my listeners, if you have such beliefs, that honestly, this is more in your mind than in my intentions, because if I could step out of this podcast into your room and talk to you, I would tell you that I take your spiritual beliefs quite seriously, regardless of your religion or spiritual orientation. And I consider myself a Christian. I consider myself a Gnostic Christian. So I understand the birth, the crucifixion, and the resurrection, but perhaps more in a symbolic rather than a literal sense. But I don't see religion as a static set of beliefs and practices that are cast in stone, but as a continual process of personal growth. And scripture can be a point of departure, but we can't view scripture as a four-walled enclosure within which each of us is eternally bound to believe or obey. The problem here is soul growth being tracked or boxed into a commonly accepted belief system, like a loudspeaker drilling away at people in a locked room. Now, spiritual awareness, like any other form of growth, is born from accepting challenges. Dogmas and doctrines can be learned and understood and critically tested in the personal growth process, but they shouldn't be blindly accepted as the final word on anything. Now, often the people who are operating the loudspeakers in the four walls metaphor I gave above, whether they be religious leaders or otherwise, really need to give people more credit. People aren't going to be led astray by having open minds. Those who are open to alternate perspectives will take what they need from this podcast, for instance, for their own spiritual evolution. So, no one's trying to create a new religion here. And honestly, in my works, in my writings, in my novels and other things, I'm definitely not a church basher, because I believe that the church can be renewed from within, from a new vision within, with the, I guess I would say with the caveat that the individual is free to make up his or her mind as to what nuances of belief to accept. So many religious people fear that such freedom would destroy the church or their view of Christianity. But I think that, in all honesty, it's just the opposite. If all of us have the divine within us, we're all the same. And ultimately, we all end up in the same place, regardless of the different paths we take. Now, the church and other religions have much of value in their religious and intellectual history. And most organized religions, however, stop short in the process of spiritual growth. And that's where the problem is. The key word here is process. Organized religions have packaged their doctrines and traditions, and they encourage people to, I guess you would say, adhere to the party line. I think that that's a fair statement, because if that weren't true, we wouldn't have so many religious conflicts where each side proclaims the certainty of its righteousness. Mainstream teachings can be beneficial if used with some judgment, but they also tend to fix a person's spiritual growth by insisting on adhering to dogma or a certain way of looking at things. So by doing that, they deter people from pursuing what might amount to a higher personal vision gained in the contemplation and experience of their own being, of their own open-mindedness and searching and inquiries. So if anything, I hope that this podcast encourages people to take charge of your own spiritual life as much as you take charge of your family or financial life. And don't blindly believe anyone else, including me, but respectfully adopt ideas provisionally until you prove or disprove them in your own spiritual experience. Now, remember, your answers will come in symbols, dreams, and actual events. So be alert. It's not so easy sometimes to identify, commands like when your grade school principal was telling you what to do over the next PA system. That doesn't happen in spiritual growth. But it's more of an awareness of the language that spirituality speaks through us, and it's not literal. It comes in different forms through synchronicities, through little signals that you just have to be sensitive and aware to know that all this is working and you are making a connection with a spiritual source. So, I just want to say that one of the reasons that I gravitated towards Gnosticism was because of the open-minded way that they approached spirituality, and they put such an emphasis on knowledge, and not knowledge through being told something, not knowledge through learning something rote. It was knowledge gained by personal experience. And I guess the difference is this, and I've said this several times before in this podcast, common knowledge is somebody telling you that fire burns. Okay, you can read that in a book, you can have somebody tell you. Real knowledge is when you put your hand in the fire and you feel it. At that point, you own it. At that point, you've experienced it. So the knowledge is something very personal and direct and real to you, not taken as an article on faith. And Gnostics were actually like the seekers from within. And in order to have those experiences of enlightenment that they had, they were really seeking an inner connection with a higher consciousness. And the knowledge that they derived from that, they were able to bring back into our own dimension of consciousness to be used to enlighten people. And this is what the mystery schools, and in essence, this is what mysticism is all about. Because when you think of it for a second, what is mysticism? Well, a mystery is something that's hidden, right? I mean, it's seeking something that's hidden. And what's hidden here? What's hidden or seems to be hidden is the actual source of what makes us conscious beings. It's the actual source of consciousness. So really, if you take the proposition that we are all parts of that consciousness, even though we're deluded parts that maybe have forgotten the whole picture just to focus on our little corner of the universe, okay, that the whole purpose is to uncover that source of consciousness within our own being. And that's what mysticism and the ancient mystery schools were about. It's about peeling back the layers and seeing hidden dimensions of existence, seeing those dimensions of existence from which we descended and which still support and form the physical material world that we think is reality, that we take as reality. So I guess I would say that if in any way this podcast helps you get to the point where you start to realize that there is more to life than just the five senses and the physical world around us, and you start to perceive that there are other forces at play here which affect our existence. And, scientists have certainly discovered this, because we know that the subatomic world forms the world that we perceive, and yet we can't really see those, at least not without the aid of instruments. We don't see the fact that the desk that my computer is on seems solid, but in reality, it's not. In reality, it's composed of subatomic particles that have more space than mass between them. And yet we perceive the table as solid mass. So, science has bumped up against these mysteries on the physical level. We have the same mysteries on the spiritual level, dealing with non-physical energies, dealing with spiritual energies, and the fact that there are many dimensions of spiritual consciousness from which we have descended, kind of like stacks of a pancake. We are maybe not really understanding that, our pancake might be on top here, but there's a whole bunch of others right below us that are supporting our whole notion of reality in the physical world. So to the extent that this podcast can help people become seekers, and most importantly, become your own prophet and rely on your own experience, and really make the time to read, study, meditate, hear from others. But again, you're the final judge of everything. Just remember that, okay? You have to become your own prophet. You don't have to believe anything I say or anything anybody else says. You can take it as guideposts to steer you on your journey. But at the end of the day, it is your journey. Each of us has that journey. I believe we'll arrive in the same room through a bunch of different doors, but how you arrive there is very important. So just keep that in mind and keep up the studying, the learning, and the meditating. And, at the end of the day, hopefully you will have those kind of extraordinary experiences that really give us a much better perspective on life. It's time for a break. I'm your host, Peter Canova, and this is Quantum Spirituality, the show where the past and the present merge to tell us about our future. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
How did life start on Earth, and why is there so much suffering? Are we living in a simulated reality like the characters in the Matrix movie? Do parallel dimensions exist alongside ours, influencing our experience? What are the mysterious dark energies that penetrate our universe? Peter Canova folds space and time to bring the twin bookends of ancient wisdom and quantum science into a single focal point, answering these and many other deep mysteries of the creation. Quantum Spirituality can be heard every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. See the show where past and present merge to show us our future.
Darkest hours to brightest moments, transformation from despair to happiness, and chaos to clarity. Real people, real pain, real healing. Life-threatening illness, death, abusive relationships, divorce, and overcoming addiction are challenges these men and women faced head-on. See how they emerged stronger and happier. Buy the new book, Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change by Reverend Patricia Caginello and Kathleen O'Keefe Canvas. Available on sacredstoriespublishing.com and worldwide through Amazon and other retailers. Why are we here? How can we be happy? Questions asked from millennials to boomers. Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy answers them using true stories of grit, grace, and love. James Redfield, author of The Celestine Prophecy, wrote in the foreword, "This book is a seminar about emerging truths and offers grounded solutions through the art of the comeback." Dr. Bernie Siegel, a contributing author, wrote, "Bodies die, but spirits and consciousness survive and recycle." So, grab some tissues, open your book, and prepare to cry and laugh till it heals. Crappy to Happy by Reverend Ariel Patricia and Kathleen O'Keefe Canvas. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and booksellers worldwide.
In a world facing annihilation, a miraculous African nun rises to become the first female pope through a web of war, murder, and betrayal. Loved by some, hated by many, she becomes the deadly target of Islamic terrorists and her own cardinals as she introduces a new vision that will either save humanity or accelerate its destruction. 4 people must race against a nuclear holocaust to learn her astonishing secret. Pope Annalisa is available at petercanova.com, Amazon, and other online booksellers and bookstores worldwide.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
We're back, and I'm your host, Peter Canova. Incidentally, you can listen to the show online in your car with Bluetooth or on Amazon Echo simply by saying, "Alexa, play Dream Vision 7." You can also go to my website, petercanova.com. That's petercanova.com, where you can access the show and the archives, or you can leave comments through the portal accessing to my Facebook page, Peter Canova Author, and leave any comments, questions that you may have there. So at the beginning of the show, I told you that today's theme would be becoming your own prophet. And what I really would like to see is that everybody can get to the point where they can judge everything by their own internal guidance and experience, as opposed to taking things at face value with what you hear from other people. And it's not to say that you shouldn't listen to other people, that you shouldn't read other material and everything else. You should do all of the above because you want to accumulate the biggest knowledge base that you can. But what you want to do is run that through your own filter and see if it resonates with you. So you have to have a filter to begin with, and that's where we really want to head. Now, getting to the point where you can have extraordinary experiences doesn't just happen because you attend a church or because you attend a spiritual group. Those things are all good, but at the end of the day, you have to do your own work. You have to really develop your own practice, your meditative and contemplative practice, in order to begin to attune to the higher energies or the higher frequencies, which can provide you an incredible source of information that you'll probably never get out of books or out of attending a church service. So what I think I would like to do today, which we haven't done before in this show, is a little bit of a guided meditation. And I'll be doing that according to the way I do things, but if you have your own practice and, you just kind of want to fade into the way that you all handle it, then please feel free to do that. Because like I say, there's many ways many doors to approach to get to the point where you're in a receptive state to start to tune into some of the energies that we've talked about. So let me take it from this point, and I'm going to play a little bit of music and maybe put some mood video on here as I talk you through this. Now, close your eyes, and I find it often helps to roll your eyes upward through the induction and start to breathe in slowly, breathe out, breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. With each breath you take in, you're bringing in energy, and with each breath blown out, you're breathing out any negative energy. And I want you to count down from 10 to 1. And with each successive count downward, you're going to go into a deeper and deeper level of mind and consciousness. And we start at 10, and then 9, going deeper. 8, 7, feeling more relaxed. 6, 5, your body is starting to lose all its tension and relax. 4, 3, going deeper. 2, and 1. And you're now at a very deep level of mind and consciousness. And you see an elevator in front of you. And you walk into the elevator. And it's beautiful with wood and plush leather inside, and the door closes. And you feel the elevator going down, bringing you into an even deeper level of mind and consciousness.
You count from 5 to 4, and you feel the pull of the gravity downward, and 3, slowly going down, 2, 1, you feel the pull downward. And now the doors open, and you walk out. And you walk out into the place that is the most beautiful place in the world to you, the place where you feel most comfortable. And we can imagine that that's on a tropical island, and it's deserted, and you're all by yourself. And you have a beautiful home that's up on a cliff, and beneath you is a beautiful cove of fine white sand, bordered by thick tropical foliage. A tropical jungle that frames this sand cove. And there's a set of wooden stairs that leads down from your beautiful home down onto the strand. But you're on the deck of a home which has large glass and a beautiful wooden deck. And on the inside of the home, you have every tool that you need to heighten your consciousness and get rid of negative energy. And one of those tools, you see a two-sided mirror, two-folded mirror. One side is very bright, and the other side is very dark. And you look into that dark mirror, and you sense and you see all the things that stress you, all the things that bother you from this life and past lives, just rolling around in that darkness. It's not a good feeling, but you're totally in control. And you just give that dark mirror a kick and you shatter it. And then the winds come along and blow all those negative shards away. All that negative energy is gone. And then you turn and you look in the bright mirror and you see yourself as you really are. And everything is beautiful and everything is perfect around you. And it gives you a surge of a beautiful feeling, because the light that's coming from that mirror is the light that comes from the source within you. And you just bask in that light. And perhaps looking in that mirror, you see light beings floating around. And you know that in truth you really are one of those light beings. But it's just your own focus and concentration that makes you feel that you're a material body. Because in truth, you're a spirit having a material experience. Not even a material being having a spiritual experience. Because your source and you are one. And you feel light on your feet. You almost float now out onto the deck of your beautiful home. And you walk down the stairs. You feel the sun warming your body. And you feel the gentle breeze against your skin. And you walk down onto the cove. And you go to the shoreline of the beautiful aqua waters. And you lie down on your back on the warm sand, and you feel the warm blue waters lapping against your feet. And you soak up the power of the earth as you're lying there. Because our power derives from two sources. It derives from the spiritual source and the source of nature which Spirit has created. And you feel both of them flowing through your body, the warmth of the earth and the spiritual power coming through the sun. And you're very, very relaxed. Nothing can harm you. Everything is perfect. And you feel energy flowing through you, the energy coming up from the earth, meeting the energy coming from spirit. And your body is the juncture of these two things. For in truth, you are a spirit in a material form. But when you focus your attention on your reality, you feel and see that you're a light being, free of the weight of the body, free of the weight of the earth. And you begin to float upward, as if you're coming out of yourself and floating towards the sun. And you rise up into the air, towards the brightness of the sun. And there's no restrictions on time, and there's no restrictions on place. And you feel yourself just floating up and being absorbed into the radiance of the sun itself, because nothing can hurt you. You're pure energy now. You're back to your original state of pure spiritual being. And it's a beautiful feeling. And you start to sense that there are other sources of energy around you that are rotating around the sun like you, like atoms will rotate around molecules in an orbit. And you feel these other beings of light around you, but you know that they're not separate from you, that they're all connected. And you feel through them your connection to that bright source at the center, that bright sun that represents the energy of the source at the center, that you're all just really part of that source. And knowing that there's nothing that you cannot achieve, nothing that you can't accomplish. For this is the source that created the material world through you and through the other spirit agencies. And that is your true power that you've forgotten, but now you cut through those mists of ignorance and illusion to understand your true source of power. And you can ask this source for information. You can ask it questions that are important to you and obtain answers that you seek and obtain guidance for whatever it is you want to achieve in life. And you know that you can go to this place and have the same experience anytime. And the more you go to this place and put yourself in this state, the more this state starts to bleed through to your everyday conscious life. And you become a waking prophet. You become a waking sage. And you no longer have to even go into a meditative state, that these things will come through to you and come through to your waking mind. But you will always go back into a meditative state to renew your source of energy and power and understanding and awakening. Because knowledge comes through awakening. Knowledge comes through your reconnection with your source, the source of everything in existence, the infinite power that supports every dimension of existence. And you are part of it. You have always been, and you always will be part of this universal energy. Now, I want you to slowly bring your awareness, your mind and consciousness back downward, as if you were descending back down to earth, back into your body that's lying in the sand on the beach with the waves lapping against your feet. And you slowly and slowly descend backwards, starting to feel the pull of the earth. And you feel your energy slowly pour back into your body. And you begin to slowly awaken, feeling refreshed and relaxed, feeling better and better, and more energetic and aware than you've ever been before. And you slowly begin to open your eyes, and your senses begin to come back to you. And you begin to become aware of your surroundings with your eyes and your ears and your sense of touch and physical senses, until you're fully awake and aware of where you are. Go in peace and join us on another show of Quantum Spirituality, where the past and the present merge to tell us our future.
This ends today's segment of Quantum Spirituality, the show where the past and present merge to show us our future. Join us the first Tuesday of each month for cutting-edge information and informative new episodes. This show will be archived on the Quantum Spirituality Dream Vision 7 Radio Network website page, also accessible at petercanova.com. That's petercanova.com.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.